Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Efrem Graham. Ahead today, Iran once again threatening to strike back against Israel, saying it will choose the proper time. That threat coming as Israel is still fighting against the deadly terrorist groups Hezbollah and Hamas, as a U.S. senator tries to ban American weapons and military aid from Israel. Jews also facing threats outside of Israel amid the rising waves of anti-Semitism worldwide. We'll take a look and hear about possible solutions. And she's a singer, songwriter, and worship leader. Our Studio 5 conversation with Kim Walker-Smith, new music and a life on tour. All those stories and more today, right here on CBN NewsWatch.
This is CBN NewsWatch.
I want to begin this half hour in the Middle East, where Iran is again promising to strike back at Israel after their retaliatory attack last month. Iran's foreign minister telling the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Tuesday the new aggression of the Zionist entity deserves a response, and we have not given up our right to respond, and we will respond at the appropriate time and in the way we see fit. That warning coming as Israel is still fighting for its survival on multiple fronts, from Hamas in Gaza to Hezbollah in Lebanon. And as Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem, some battles are taking place not just on the front lines, but in the halls of the U.S. Congress.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the strategic Netzarim corridor in the Gaza Strip, standing alongside the new Defense Minister Israel Katz, who reinforced one of Israel's main war goals.
We need to ensure that Hamas does not control here on the day after. And that is why the things that happened on October 7th happened, and we're going to ensure that that doesn't happen again.
Netanyahu also directly addressed those holding hostages, which includes 7 Israeli Americans.
Whoever dares to harm our hostages will pay the price. We will pursue you and we will find you. Whoever brings us a hostage will find a safe way out for him and his family. We will also give you $5 million for every hostage. Choose. The decision is in your hands.
Meanwhile, in Lebanon, the IDF is working systematically to wipe out Hezbollah terrorists and their ability to attack Israel. In Beirut, the U.S. senior advisor to President Biden, Amos Hochstein, says a ceasefire is within reach.
It is now within our grasp. So as the window is now, I hope the coming days yield a resolute decision.
But Sergeant Major Doron Kadar, who fought in southern Lebanon, says Israel needs to complete its mission.
So me personally, I feel that Israel should have complete control of southern Lebanon up to the Litani, where we have a defensible border between us and Lebanon, and that we eliminate every threat within that buffer zone from Hezbollah and also beyond the Litani. If there are any threats of rockets or what have you, then I believe that what we should do is we should carry a very heavy hand against any threat against our citizens, our people.
In Tehran, Iran is back to threatening Israel for the IDF's October 26th attack on the Islamic regime.
The Islamic Republic of Iran considers itself fully entitled to respond to this attack.
Meanwhile, the UN's nuclear watchdog says Iran is one step away from enriching some of its uranium to weapons-grade uranium, enough to create 4 nuclear weapons. The head of the International Atomic Energy Agency warns the time to negotiate Iran away from nuclear weapons is shrinking. While Israel fights a seven-front war, on Capitol Hill in Washington, independent Senator Bernie Sanders and Democrat allies are proposing legislation to ban U.S. arms and military aid to Israel. Monday, Sanders labeled what Israel is doing in the Gaza war unspeakable. However, incoming Senate Majority Leader John Thune reassured Israel and the Jewish people things will change in January.
We will stand with Israel and make this and other supportive legislation a top priority in the next Congress. So to our allies in Israel and to the Jewish people around the world, my message to you is this: reinforcements are on the way.
Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem. Continue our coverage. Chris, the incoming Trump team and Republican Congress are making it clear that they will strongly support Israel, but Iran is also making it clear they still intend to strike back against Israel. Is there any sense in Israel that Iran might attack before President-elect Donald Trump takes office come January?
Well, here in Israel, Ephraim, they know that the rhetoric from Iran is there. They say they're going to react in a time and in a way if we see fit. They call what the upcoming operation is Operation Honest Promise 3. The other two Honest Promise operations were 1 and 2 on April 13th and October 1st. The rhetoric is there, Ephraim, but the question is the motivation. Some interpret what they're saying as, well, we're going to wait for a while. And are they reconsidering after the election of President Trump not to do anything? Or you could see that maybe they see this time period between now and January 20th as their window of opportunity to go ahead and strike Israel. As I said, April 13th, October 1st, those are the two times they attacked Israel, but they did minimal damage. And yet Israel, on the other hand, on its attack on October 26th, did major damage to Iran's air defense system and a key nuclear site. So we'll see what happens. But right now, I think the sense here in Israel is that Iran may exercise what they call strategic patience.
There is an analysis by Yonah Jeremy Bob in the Jerusalem Post that Netanyahu may have developed a doctrine for striking Iran's nuclear program. What does he basically say, and how likely is a strike to happen?
Well, what he's saying is that Benjamin Netanyahu had opportunities both on April 19th and October 1st, after both of those attacks by Iran, that he had an opportunity to hit those nuclear sites, but he chose not to do so. Yonah Bob makes the point that historically, Benjamin Netanyahu has been very cautious militarily, but after his bolstered by military successes in Gaza and Lebanon, he's been more aggressive in his rhetoric lately. And Trump, right now, he has a very hawkish foreign policy team. He has Marco Rubio, Elise Stefanik, Governor Mike Huckabee, all hawkish on Iran. That's part of his foreign policy team. And possibly will Netanyahu, in his new thinking, you wait till January 20th, and with the help of the Trump administration, take that opportunity to hit Iran's nuclear program, something he's wanted to do for decades.
Netanyahu also reinforced the point strongly that Hamas will not be allowed to rule in Gaza. Is that a key point where the Israeli government will hold the line?
I think so. I mean, they have three key goals, and that was at the very beginning of the war after October 7th. The first goal is that they would defeat Hamas militarily. They've nearly accomplished that goal, although it's still not over there in the Gaza Strip. Also, that Hamas can never govern Gaza again. That's exactly what Israel Katz and Benjamin Netanyahu made clear when they were in Gaza yesterday. And finally, to free and return all the hostages. And so it seems like this government is holding the line on all of those goals. In addition, they want security control in Gaza after the war, and also to establish a buffer zone around the Gaza envelope so that there would be this military buffer zone separating Gaza from the rest of Israel.
What is the status of this point, possibly getting any hostages released at this point?
Well, Ephraim, we'll see if the promise of $5 million will make a difference. And also what Benjamin Netanyahu did in that appeal is that he would say there would be safe passage. What that means is that if anybody probably holding a hostage right now, if they agreed to this promise of Israel, received the $5 million, they would be a marked person, and maybe the whole family would be marked. So they would have to literally get out of Gaza and find a safe place somewhere else if they did take this deal and get $5 million. Some people wonder why hasn't this been offered since the very beginning of the war, and who knows if that might have been helpful. And but we don't know who has them, Ephraim. There's more groups than just Hamas. There's clans in Gaza, Islamic Jihad, but just still anguish for the families here in the country. If you come here, Ephraim, you'll see posters all over the place, yellow ribbons, pictures of bus stops. Everybody here in Israel is remembering and praying for those hostages.
Chris, despite the talk of a ceasefire in Lebanon, Israel and Hezbollah are still engaged in some fierce attacks. Does the Israeli leadership still want to wipe out Hezbollah?
I believe they do, and I think this ceasefire proposal may be a way for Iran trying to help Hezbollah. We don't know about that exactly, but the goal is to really make sure that Hezbollah is no longer a threat to Israel. That's one of the official goals as well, is to return those 60,000 Israelis that had fled on the northern border back in their homes. So I think Israel, this government, does want to defeat Hezbollah decisively.
Our CBN News Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell, thank you so much as always for your insight. Stay safe and know that we back here are praying for you and our team there in Israel. Coming up, the rise of anti-Semitism across the world. We're going to bring you a look at these dangerous attacks and how the Jewish community is calling for support and action from every faith. We're going to have that story for you when we come back. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. From a Jewish man being shot in Chicago to all-out calls for Jew hunts, anti-Semitic violence is sending shockwaves across communities worldwide. CBN's Brody Carter reports on the latest wave of attacks, and he explores possible solutions to the growing crisis.
It has felt like it's open season on the Jews, certainly since October 7th and the massacre in Israel. It seems to have ignited a terrible bloodlust against Jews around the world.
This scene from Amsterdam, where organized mobs targeted Israeli soccer fans. Attackers calling for a, quote, Jew hunt led to the eruption of violence. Despite a nationwide ban on demonstrations there, pro-Palestinian protests led to further clashes and more than a dozen arrests. In Chicago, a Jewish man shot walking to a synagogue in broad daylight. He survived, and it's being investigated as a hate crime. And protesters waving Nazi flags in Howell, Michigan, gathered outside the American Legion Post, hosting a performance of the Diary of Anne Frank.
There is a strain of radical Islam also around the world that we've seen with mass migration to Europe and the United States that is all too willing to go along with this radical philosophy that is Jew-hating.
Experts monitoring this trend, like former State Department envoy Eli Kohanim, says with radical ideology spreading faster than ever, governments worldwide need to take stronger action.
We saw a 50% rise in the number of Jews that are now hiding their identity.
E.J. Kimball with the Combat Anti-Semitism movement sees a disease of hate spreading, and that 1 in 5 Jewish American children have experienced anti-Semitism since October 7th. He tells CBN News a simple solution is calling out anti-Semitism for what it is.
A definition of anti-Semitism called the IHRA, the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance working definition of anti-Semitism. It is the gold standard definition.
The beginning of that definition being anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred toward Jews.
When you adopt the definition, which is the first step, it sends a message. But when you actually embrace that definition and enforce it and implement it, that's where law enforcement now has the tools to stop this stuff.
As reports of these incidents increase, Jewish communities are calling for greater solidarity and action from all faiths.
But even more than that, you've got to stand up and call out evil when it rears its ugly head. And that means when in Washington, D.C. last week on the anniversary of Kristallnacht, when the one kosher restaurant was attacked, the windows were smashed in, it means coming out, condemning it for what it is.
Both Kimball and Kohanim agree that confronting this issue goes beyond symbolic gestures. It requires enforcing existing laws and empowering communities to stand firm against hatred. Brody Carter, CBN News.
Still ahead, switching gears to the world of entertainment and our Studio 5 conversation with singer and songwriter and worship leader Kim Walker-Smith. We're going to talk about her music and her life on tour. We're going to hear from her right after this. Welcome back to CBN NewsWatch. Wife, mother, singer, songwriter, worship leader Kim Walker-Smith. You may know her from Jesus Culture, but she also is a solo artist, and she's been busy making music and on tour.
Very same power that rolls back rocks from a dead man's cave is the very same power that I feel stirring in this place.
So Trample's been out for a little bit. What's been the biggest surprise of the project?
Well, I put this album out as an indie artist, meaning I'm not with any label anymore. And I had no idea what it would be like, I don't know, how will this go? But it was quite the surprise to all of us, actually, that it was having any degree of success that it was.
This is the Testify tour.
Yes.
What gave birth to this? I was waiting for a Trample tour, so when I said Testify.
Well, it started with, obviously, one of the main ideas around going out on a tour, especially right after an album release, is that you are kind of touring the album, touring the songs. But I'm probably just a little bit of a different mindset, where one of the biggest prayers that I have for the body of Christ and for the church is that they would step into their role as worshipers and really see that, you are created to worship. Yeah. And I feel like one of the keys to that is when we are holding our testimony close and recalling that, it just pulls the worship out of us.
To that end, in this moment, what testimony would you share? What would you say?
Well, one of my favorites has been going back to when I was 11 years old, and this was kind of a really interesting mark in my life. My mom sent me to a church camp for the summertime. Every night the preacher's getting up, he gives a message, and every night we would just sneak out the back when the altar call would start, and we'd run and hide in our cabin and just wait it out till it was over with, because we were just like, we don't know what this is, But on the last night of the camp, it was different because we walked back in silence, and me and my sister got back to the cabin and discussed that we both felt a literal ache inside of us, that we could see and feel that there was something that these kids had that we didn't have, and we felt a hunger for that. We wanted that. And I didn't really understand exactly what that was or meant, and I had a lot of questions. But I understood at 11 years old that I had met God. That moment marked something inside of me that I've never forgotten, which was that at 11 years old, I knew what God has done. It just demands a response out of us, and it deserves that. And that's kind of set a pillar inside of me of what worship should be and what it is.
Jesus, here in your presence, here in your presence, here in your presence tonight, yes.
I pulled two headlines that I saw in articles about you, and I just want to get your reaction to them. First, one is Kim Walker-Smith on why she took a break from music and how God inspired her to come back.
Yes.
What happened?
Okay, so there were a lot of people saying, you're moving to Montana. That's way up in no man's land, out of sight, out of mind. It's gonna kill your career. I just don't believe that's the case. My life is surrendered to Jesus, and he'll do whatever he wants with my career, with my life, with my music, with whatever it is. But then in the midst of it, the Lord came in a really precious moment and spoke to me, and I felt like he just breathed some fresh life in me and said, yes, you're gonna do this, but in a new way, in a different way.
Kim Walker-Smith, what we get wrong about revival?
We talk about revival all the time. I mean, for years, we sing about it, we pray, we ask God, send revival, we write songs. This is what we want. We want a revival where, for whatever reason, God just kind of breathed on a certain movement or church or a person, and revival kind of as we know it, as we see it, as we call it, kind of sprang up. I don't want just a moment in time. I don't want just a blip on the scale of history,
Yes.
Remember when we had this revival? I mean, I kind of wonder, well, what happened? Where did it go? Why did it go away? And I think that when you start having a revival in your own life, where there is a continuous flow of the presence of God into your personal life, it is just flowing out of you. I mean, obviously, it makes sense. If there's a continuous flow coming in, it's just going to be flowing out of you. That should change the atmosphere of your home. It should change your family. It should change the way you do life in your family. So maybe instead of just singing songs about revival or in church asking God to send revival, maybe we just start in our personal lives, in our hearts, in our homes, and just watch as the overflow changes these places where we are.
Time to believe again. Open up and let revival in.
Kim Walker-Smith has another single you should be sure to sample. It is called Rooftops. You can listen to it wherever you purchase, stream, or download your music. Be sure to join us. We've got a special edition of Studio 5 this evening. We're going to take you to the land of Oz for that film, Wicked. It's a story about friendship, relationships, and identity. We're going to talk to the stars of the film, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. Plus, we're going to give you a behind-the-scenes look at the film through the eyes of the director. You can catch the new episode of Studio 5 on the CBN News channel. It begins at 8 Eastern. You can also watch it on the CBN News app, or you can find it on YouTube. Coming back with an encouraging word for your Wednesday. Stay with us. You're watching CBN NewsWatch. Time now for your Wednesday word, and I actually have 3 words for you. Learn, earn, return. Learn to use your gifts. Earn all you can from putting those gifts to use, and then return. Give back and help others, and do it in gratitude for all that you have been given. Learn, earn, return. Recognize which of those seasons you're in at the moment and do it. With that word, make this a wonderful Wednesday. Well, that will do it for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. I'll remind you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News channel at any time. You can also find them online. That address is cbnnews.com. Let us know what you think about the stories you've seen here today by email. You can email us, newswatch@cbn.com. We'll see you back here tomorrow.